Humans are weird closet space. Third quartermaster to Proxima Base was waiting patiently outside of the small circular door set into the wall of the hallway. The smooth green walls stretched an impressive length in every direction before curving out of sight. The walls were marked with a handful of other door types, most notable the ones that opened into the river that ran under the transparent floor. Third quartermaster tilted his head to the side in interest when a pale white undulate swam past. He didn't suppose there was another undulate with that odd coloration on the campus, so this must be Professor Stiffens, the one who had requested the audit of the soup spoons the other day. Why the professor of post-contact literature even knew what soup spoons were, third quartermaster did not know, but the audit was being duly performed. His thread of thought was interrupted when the door spiraled open and first quartermaster skittered out of his office. The Trisk clicked in surprise and rearranged the unstable stack of data pads that was threatening to overwhelm his paws. "Third quartermaster," first quartermaster said. "What brings you here?" Third quartermaster waited the polite 6 seconds as he had been taught before answering. "We have a meeting about human space requirements," third quartermaster explained. "Yes," first quartermaster said. "I recalled that just as I started the question." "Well, do you want to have it in your office or the fishbowl?" "The fishbowl will need to suffice," third quartermaster said, tilting his triangular head to the side in a rueful gesture. "One of the humans failed to follow quarantine protocol when he received a shipment of a predatory insect species." "There are predatory insects loose on the campus?" first quartermaster demanded. In reality, a few years of students and facility at the university had coated the walls with layer upon layer of written notes and cleaning marks, turning the once transparent walls almost translucent. It made for a reasonably private meeting place. "Now, what is the latest problem with our big friendly mammals?" first quartermaster asked. "One could hardly call this the latest problem," third quartermaster said. "I haven't classified it as a problem yet, and I have been tracking its development since the very first human researcher was sent here from the Earth University." "Do go on," first quartermaster encouraged him. "This first human," third quartermaster said. He was a biomechanical systems engineer. When he arrived, he had just slightly too much personal gear to fit in the storage containers he had brought. "Everything seemed necessary and critical to his functioning, so I supplied him with a storage unit for his quarters that was about twice the volume of his original unit." "Wise and generous," first quartermaster said, patting his paws thoughtfully on the stack of data pads that was still shifting in a way that made third quartermaster uncomfortable. "Approximately 2 lunar months later, I noted that the same situation had developed again," third quartermaster went on. "The human did not complain, but as the materials scattered around his quarters was a safety hazard. And again, he seemed to have no non-essentials. I doubled his storage containers." This happened a few more times. Therefore, when more humans began to be stationed here, I elected to integrate closets and shelving units into the quarters. He paused and licked at one of his eyes as he considered his next words. "However," third quartermaster went on again, "as each new human arrives, they each express satisfaction with the amount of storage space they are allotted. Note that it does not matter how much or little they are given. They all express an initial satisfaction, then they quickly fill the space to capacity and require more. I have the numbers and evidence here." First quartermaster clicked in a tone of puzzlement as he took the data pad from third quartermaster and began to examine the data. "Very curious," first quartermaster said. "Yes, I see that you simply cannot allot any more space to each individual human. There is very little in the way of non-essentials." "Very curious." "Well?" First quartermaster tilted his head to the side finally and looked at third quartermaster with a handful of eyes. "What do you think we should do about this?" he asked. "A proper investigation into this is warranted," third quartermaster said, gesturing at the information. "I have provided the justifications and have written up a proposal for the proper departments. Until that can be done, I've put a stated cap on individual storage space in the university proper with options to contact outside storage facilities." "Very good, very good," first quartermaster said, approving the measures with a tap of his paw on the data pad. "Do the humans recognize the pattern?" Third quartermaster flicked an antenna at him in confirmation. "They call it goldfishing," he said, "though the term does not appear to be culturally universal. Humans are weird, have some nice soothing murders." "It is so easy to forget how irrationally competitive they can be," second sister clicked softly to eighth cousin. They are so sensible about so many things. Eighth cousin gave a non-committal click in reply and pressed closer to second sister's side. The smaller cousin was a rather sickly waxy green from the empathetic stress that was spreading around the base. Eighth cousin was a natural garden help, nearly too empathetic and willing to work herself till her membrane wept. Second sister was seriously considering ordering the communications array shut down for maintenance until the primary game cycle was over. The humans insisted that the rivalry was entirely in good faith and a spirit of healthy exuberance. The pheromones that they pumped into the air, however, told a different story. For the first time in her service period, second sister found herself regretting that human pheromones were so easy to translate by intuition. Second botanist and fifth botanist in particular had been radiating aggression at each other for weeks, a situation that was only made worse by the fact that they kept their body language rigidly controlled. It was eerily disconcerting to walk past a pair of such massive beings whose every joint was a carefully poised message of polite attention, only to have your antenna positively curl with the potent mix of fight, flight, or freeze pheromones, and the obviously predatory focus pheromones. The humans insisted that their own chemoreceptors played a negligible role in communication between other humans. Second sister highly doubted this. Why would any creature pour that many physical resources into a communication system that they barely used? There was always the possibility that IS was meant to communicate the human predatory state to their symbiotic partner species, but the mixture was so complex. "Here comes fifth botanist," eighth cousin clicked in mother. Second sister tilted her head to greet the human female, but the massive mammal didn't seem to notice. She was striding with determination, her wide feet hitting the floor with a fleshy slapping sound. Eighth cousin perked up her frill and slightly uncoiled her antenna. "She's going to make peace," eighth cousin clicked with relief, relaxing her joints. Second sister wasn't quite so confident, but eighth cousin was, after all, her superior in empathy, so second sister gave her a soothing nibble to the frill and got up to investigate. The current cycle of sporting events wasn't supposed to wrap up for several more days. If the two botanists could make peace, it would make all of their lives easier. Second sister followed fifth botanist until the human approached second botanist. "Hey, Chip," fifth botanist called out. "Sally?" second botanist responded as he rotated his body. Immediately, the air began to fill with the conflict that vibrated between them. Second sister fought to keep her neck frill smooth and down. She noted that neither human seemed aware of her presence, they were so focused on each other. "Look, Chip," fifth botanist said in a curt tone. "We gotta cut this out." "Cut what out?" he asked with a frown. "I'm not entirely sure myself," fifth botanist said, "but apparently the whole bowl spirit has got that sweet little eighth cousin on the ropes, and according to the base medic, you and me are ground zero for her stress and flaking." "Makes sense," second botanist agreed. "No one else has a team in the game on this base, but what are we supposed to do about it? If we just pretend we aren't rooting for opposite sides, it just bottles it up, and from what I read, that only makes it worse for the species that notice that sort of stuff. It's not like we can help off-gassing." "I have a plan," fifth botanist said. "We fill our brains with something else till game night. Really focus on something calming. It's only a few more days. Then we'll do a pheromone scrub after all is said and done." "I guess that might work," second botanist said in unusually slow tones. "Got any idea on what calming matter we could digest?" The two humans leaned towards each other, and second sister slipped away with a relieved feeling. She could feel the tension level dropping as they made the plan. She sent eighth sister to the showers for a cleanse after telling her the good news. She made a point to thank the medic, an undulate with extensive experience handling humans. "They are usually very cooperative," the medic said with a dismissive wave of his gripping appendage. "If you give them a nice simple explanation of the problem, they can usually find a solution themselves." "Which is a good thing," the undulate said in a rueful tone. "The mere fact that you land dwellers react at all to such minute concentrations of pheromones in the atmosphere is barely within my ability to diagnose, let alone treat. Now, if it were stewing in the water, that would be different." The meditative solution that fifth botanist had proposed did indeed seem to be working well. There was still a level of tension in the air the next day, but it was overlaid by a feeling of harmony and cooperation that was positively invigorating after the weeks of tension. Eighth cousin predictably felt a little guilty for curtailing what was obviously a human tradition through her reactions, and had to be soothed repeatedly. But overall, the relief was complete. Whatever content the humans had settled on was so unifying that fifth botanist and second botanist were now spending hours together absorbing and analyzing it. The change was so complete that eighth cousin grew quite interested on what mental excessive could so completely reroute human focus. Given that she didn't quite feel up to exposing herself directly to the pair of humans, no matter how well they were getting on, the competition was still unresolved, and their endocrine systems knew it. She asked second sister to ask what they were meditating so intently on. Second sister gladly agreed she was quite as curious. So she made a point to greet the humans in the hallway as they were transitioning from duty hours to recreation hours. Fifth botanist, second sister greeted the human. I wanted to thank you for the effort you and second botanist have put into regulating your social communication. I understand that this is not something you need to be concerned with in your own social circles. No problem, second sister, fifth botanist said, flashing her teeth in a wide grin. It probably does affect us anyway. It'd sure explain a lot of the nonsense that the brothers got into back home come bowl week. Sorry we freaked out eighth cousin. Is there anything else we can do? Actually, second sister said, she was rather curious about what meditation materials you were using to reroute your energies. Meditative what now? Fifth botanist asked with a frown. Oh, the book and stuff. Her face broke into a grin, and then she burst out laughing. Meditative, eh? She asked. Well, I guess that is the long and short of it. We didn't really think of it as meditation, though. Just keeping the old gray matter busy thinking on something more calming than the big game. You see, it's like this. This author wrote these awesome books a few hundred years ago. Then they were made into performances. Then the performance were recorded and made into broadcasts. Then those needed to be updated with every technology update, and the story changed a bit each time. That is the standard progression for entertainment stories, second sister replied. So Chip and I both have a thing for those stories, fifth botanist went on. The original written version mind. So we've been reading the original version, then marathoning every recorded version to see how they change over the years. Awful tripe, most of them, but it is interesting watching the way the ideas get warped over time. We're both really into it, and I guess our mutual love of the stories is enough to overcome the competitive spirit of the game. The human seemed done for a moment, and then her expressive face twitched as she seemed to remember some last item. And the material itself is just soothing, she added. Interesting, second sister observed. And what is this soothing story material? Just some nice, wholesome murders, fifth botanist said with a smile. Second sister stared at her, first confused, then waiting for some clarification, but the human noted an undulate mechanic she wanted to speak to and strode off to greet him, leaving second sister to make sense of that last sentence. Humans are weird, just too hot. Greetings, friend, roll slowly, Twistunder called out as he caught sight of the slightly larger undulate floating down the main hallway. Do you have some observation time available at the moment? Rolls slowly, idly rotated his body so that one of his gripping appendages was uppermost and grabbed onto the door jamb of the exit. This efficiently stopped him movement and allowed Twistunder to catch up to him more easily against the drift current. I have no pressing assignments at the moment, Rolls slowly observed. What did you wish to observe? Twistunder caught up to him and cheerfully tapped Rolls slowly's exposed appendages in a friendly greeting. Rolls slowly returned the gesture, and they drifted down the corridor. You expressed curiosity on how variable human reactions to touch greetings were, Twistunder explained. Also, you were curious about how the acceptability of touch greetings varied with temperature and atmospheric pressure. Actually, Rolls slowly interjected, I believe I expressed incredulity. That is a bit of a difference there, Twistunder hummed in amusement. Well, I believe I can introduce you to a situation where the phenomenon will be exceptionally obvious, Twistunder said, although it will require two distinctly different observational times. Do you have sapient species behavioral observation permissions? Rolls slowly asked. We won't need them, Twistunder said with a dismissive wave of an appendage. Everything we will be doing falls under the casual social interaction exemption. However, on that note, can you think of anything personally interesting you might want to ask the humans to collect for you on today's excursion? Rolls slowly mulled over this as they began to swim towards the main airlock. Above them, the steady double beat of the humans' tread filled the waterways with a soothing rhythm. They are going into the dense land reefs, are they not? Rolls slowly asked. The forests, yes, Twistunder confirmed. Then there is nothing I could wish from there, Roll slowly said. All of my research has been into the proper reef systems of this planet. In that case, you must simply exchange the friendliest greetings that you consider appropriate with the human you are closest to, Twistunder said. Ask for uppies if your current level of socialization allows it. That won't be a problem, Roll slowly assured him. Human friend Susan is on the team going out today. She has actually faced disciplinary hearings on no less than 3 separate occasions for giving unsolicited uppies. We are great friends. Disciplinary hearings for unsolicited uppies? Twistunder asked in a note of confusion. Those were, of course, for sapients other than ungulates, I suppose. Oh no, Roll slowly replied. Only the first 2 involved an ungulate who was holding either a high-concentrate beaker of acid or a biohazard of some sort, and it spilled. The third was classified by the university for diplomatic reasons, but given how pale human friend Susan gets whenever it is mentioned, I suppose the ungulate must have been carrying something quite valuable and which cost her university quite a bit to replace. That is understandable, Twistunder said in a cautious tone. Still, if one is living with humans, one must learn either to dodge or to hold on tight. They had come to the main airlock, and the joyful cacophony of humans gathered to prepare for a mission was filling both the chamber above them and the flowway they were in. They slipped through the pressure barrier and shuffled up onto the main deck. Immediately, the sound profile thinned as their auditory cells adjusted to the thin atmosphere. Twistunder nudged Roll slowly and indicated the readout on the wall. Note that this room is kept at the lower end of human-preferred temperature and humidity, Twistunder pointed out. These are the conditions best for physical social interaction. The most relevant issues being the humans are conserving their thermoreserves at this point and instinctively welcome the presence of social biomass insulation. Added to this, their secretions glands are at the lowest possible setting, leaving their outer membrane moisture content at very close to the same level as the shatar, only slightly warmer on average. I observe that everything you say is accurate or a logical deduction or comparison, Roll slowly agreed. At this point, human friend Susan stopped packing supplies into her personal mass transporter and came over to them, her exposed face and arms flushing with the dancing light of pleasure. Roll slowly lifted his gripping appendages in the exaggerated gesture one had to use on humans for uppies, and human friend Susan obligingly scooped him up and happily let him curl around her shoulders. Her long braids slapped against her shoulders in an almost angry gesture that most ungulates learn to ignore fairly quickly. The concept that humans had no real control over the only real appendages that were capable of growing was a difficult concept, but one that, once mastered, prevented much misunderstanding. "You guys came to see us off?" she asked Twistunder. "Indeed," Twistunder said. "That and to offer a warning." "What kind of warning, Twit?" human friend Mac asked, strolling over to greet the ungulates. "The temperature and humidity will continue to rise until well past the solar zenith," Twistunder said. "Do remember to sustain your internal hydration." The male human gave a loud laugh and his exposed skin flared with pleasure and the awareness of community. The female human generated a happy coo and nuzzled her chemoreceptor, the only dedicated sensory organ the humans had that was almost an appendage, into Roll's slowly, before sloping her shoulders to indicate that he had to get down. The humans gathered up their packs and swung out into the dense fauna outside of the dome, laughing and chatting among themselves. "We are quite sure there are no predators that would want to eat them?" Roll slowly asked in a soft tone, as their tall bodies seemed to shrink, to become frail beneath the massive trunks of the forest. "They insist that none of the fauna or predatory flora is a threat," Twistunder said cautiously, reaching out to give Roll slowly a nudge. "This station has had no human deaths." "Predatory flora," Roll slowly said, and a shiver ran up his mass. "This planet has algae that eats your proteins. And we humans that can preform an instant dissection if we get caught in one," Twistunder said cheerfully. "That's why they carry those long blades. What are they called?" "Machetes," Roll slowly said, feeling a bit better. "I took training on those, you know. I am now rated to carry even the longest ones safely." "That's a good skill to have," Twistunder agreed. "Now we need to watch the readout for their return. To observe their reactions under conditions of humidity and raised internal temperature, we want to catch them just as they come in. I was of the understanding that when they follow proper hydration protocol, there is no raise in core temperature at all, Roll slowly observed. "Oh, yes," Twistunder said with a dismissive wave of his gripping appendage. "But they never follow proper hydration protocol. Meet me here as soon as you can, after the perimeter defenses alert to their return." Roll slowly gave a shimmy of confirmation and went to find out if the biochem department had made any advancements on that predatory plant-repellent mist. The day cycle passed, and as Twistunder had predicted, the humans returned near the heat zenith with the solar zenith several hours behind them. They were moving far more slowly now. Trudging, that movement was called. They trudged into the decontamination area and released their packs with groans and hisses. They let the lights play over them and then trudged into the inner airlock. Their skin was flushed with angry red lights of dehydration, and their off-gassed chemical signals spoke of woefully low levels of several minerals. Human friend Susan dropped down on a nearby bench and began to tug off the armored coverings she wore on her feet. As the two ungulates planned, Roll slowly went up to human friend Susan and held up his appendages in a request for uppies. For several moments, the human didn't seem to notice as she wrestled with the foot armor. When she did see him, she just groaned and shook her head, her braids falling limply on her shoulders. "Not right now, Rolls," she said. "Way too hot." "May I help you remove your foot armor?" Roll slowly asked, slightly excited to get such quick confirmation of the theory, slightly disturbed by the signals her outer membrane was giving off. "Too hot for you to be near my feet," human friend Susan muttered. Which wasn't exactly logical, but the whole point of today's exercise was that he didn't really understand human thermodynamics. Twistunder was chatting with the crew lead, something about a plant that's name was in debate at the university pending a more through description. Roll slowly mused that while the humans were moving so slowly was a good time to pin them down for questions. "Do your braids increase your retained thermal energy, human friend Susan?" Roll slowly asked. She turned her head to him and blinked slowly as she processed the information. She slowly nodded, and her lips formed the shape of words, but she didn't bother expending the breath to activate her sound-generating organ. She reached up with one hand and gathered both braids in one hand, pulling them up, causing her chin to dip down. Her other hand gripped her machete and freed it from its safety restraints. Then, in one smooth motion, she brought blade, stained with the fluids of innumerable plants up, and began to saw away at the braided appendages. Despite the blade clearly not being rates for something so tough as the appendages, the last few strands severed several seconds before Rolls slowly began to shriek in horror. Rolls slowly did not consider his mental processes to be particularly slow. He had often wondered how he would react in an emergency. He had never specifically thought about a friend self-mutilating. But it was a rather crushing blow to discover that he couldn't react nearly in time to prevent. His thoughts were interrupted when human friend Mac scooped him up in his arms and began petting him soothingly. Human friend Mac was fairly conversant in the ungulate language, but his fingers were babbling something about dead tissue and nerve endings, and meanwhile human friend Susan was listlessly holding her severed appendages. "Roll slowly! Please collect yourself!" Twistunder's touch suddenly interjected itself. Human friend Mac had stopped talking as his two primary appendages seemed fully occupied with holding the weight of two fully grown ungulates. "She needs medical aid!" Roll slowly insisted. "I assure you she does not," Twistunder insisted. "Look at her colors!" Roll slowly took in the heat-flushed and dehydrated patterns playing across human friend Susan's face. She was far from not needing medical attention, but there were no signs of pain or excess fluid loss. Now that he was thinking properly, he did recall that the material of the braids was technically dead tissue, and that other than mass, the humans lost nothing by removing it. Still, the sight of those limp appendages in her hands sent a shiver down Roll Slowly's mass. "Are you okay?" Human friend Mac pressed into his mass. "Yes, I will be," Roll slowly pressed back. "Please set me down." "Come on," Twistunder said, tugging him towards the flowways. "I know that looked traumatizing. I didn't think she would use such an inappropriate tool." "You think the tool was the problem?" Roll slowly demanded. Behind them, they heard human friend Mac demand of human friend Susan. "What were you thinking?" "I was too hot," human friend Susan replied with a shrug. "Less hair means less hot,"